Okay guys, so welcome back to another biology lesson about fish farming. So we're just going to go through exam type question and go through the answers. You should have done this. It was in your assignments. So let's start with the question. The photograph shows a fish farm and 1/3 of the fish we eat is produced by fish farms. So as you can see from the picture, there's an example of a real life fish farm. So then the question states, or asks, suggest 3 advantages of fish farming rather than catching fish from the wild. So to understand the question, they want you to come up with 3 ideas about why fish farming is advantageous, more advantageous compared to catching fish from the wild. So just normal fishing out in the wild, in the seas, in the rivers. So why is it better to farm the fish rather than catching it? Well, this is a 3-mark question. Well, because, here are the answers. We can control their diet, quality, and frequency. We can control the water quality, the oxygen, temperature, and waste, or anything that's equivalent to that. So you can control the conditions of the environment. We can control predation using nets. We can also control disease, parasites, by adding antibiotics, pathogens. If you mention pathogens, you would get the mark. However, if you just mentioned healthier fish, you wouldn't get the mark. Also, you could get the marks for saying that because it's a selected species, or you could mention the mass, or mention that you could guarantee the quality of the fish because there's less variation, so that goes into selective breeding, I suppose. Also, if you think about it just with your common sense, there's no need for boats, and it's easier to catch, obviously, in a fish farm, isn't it, compared to the wild. Also, there's no risk of overfishing. No risk of overfishing, because sometimes what happens is, especially in countries like Russia, China, Japan, they overfish certain species, diminishing the population. So there's less of a depletion of wild fish, it says, for the mark. So there's less likelihood of the population of wild fish decreasing. And there's also no risk of catching other species. So obviously, if you're catching fish with large nets, as I'm sure you've all seen, there's no risk of actually catching other fish. Now, the next question, fish farming is a way of providing a source of protein as food for humans. So that's one of the reasons we fish farm. Describe and explain 3 different ways a fish farmer can help to increase the yield of fish. So we mentioned these points last lesson. So 3 different ways fish farmers can help to increase the yield. Well, we need to describe the method and mention how we can control it. So to increase the yield, so to maximize the number of fish that we farm. So for example, we can control predation. How do we do that? So to answer this question, we need to mention it, so describe it, and then explain it as well. Okay, so 1 mark for description and the 2nd mark for explanation. So first one, we control predation. How? We cover the ponds with nets to protect our fish from any predators. There were intra and interspecies. We can control disease. How can we control disease? By using antibiotics. We can control water quality. And how do we do that? We filter out nitrogenous waste. So that's how you get the marks here. There's a total of 6. So these are the main points that will be tested on for this topic. Okay, so I'll just end the video here. That's fish farming done.